Hello, Internet. Welcome back to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK.
Jose is frozen. Everybody's frozen.
Oh.
I'm swiveling around. I'm not frozen.
No, Dave, can you hear us?
I see.
I think it's Dave. Everyone stand still.
I think it's Dave. Wait, maybe a little bit to load in. Okay.
Dave, you silly guy.
All right.
Brent, is everybody freezing for you too?
No.
It's just you.
Yeah.
Dave broke the internet.
Time to reboot.
Yeah.
Time to reboot.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm your host, Tim TK, joined as always by Jose Fuentes.
Hello, everybody. Wait. Okay, we're ready.
Ron Fortier.
Howdy, all.
Brent Larson.
Yes.
And David Rios, if you can hear us.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Perfect.
All three of you were frozen a minute ago. Brent and I were not.
That is so crazy. Yeah, that same thing happened to you last week. It was you, me, and everyone else froze. I don't know why I'm so special. The internet loves me, I guess.
Yes.
The internet loves no one. So.
I was going to say.
True. Yeah. And tonight we're talking about the subject of you don't need to be great to get started. And so really what this is going to come down to is overcoming your inner perfectionist and realizing that the best way to get started in comics is just to get started. But before we do that, though, we do have to do a quick little shout out here, some little bit of housekeeping. And that is Silverline Comics Crowdfunder is live and is currently promoting our slew of trade paperbacks.
Woohoo.
All right. So here's my rap, guys. Ready? If you're tired of floppies, that's just a single copy. Get a story that doesn't fade. Buy a trade.
There we go.
I was going to lay down a beat for you, Ron. I didn't know you actually were going
Right?
I thought you were talking about rap like they meant in the 60s.
Yeah, this is old man rap.
There you go. Yes, hip hop university Ron Porter.
We all could get in on this, I think. That'd be cool.
Yeah. There you go. So, yes, this is, already all our collections are, all of our books put up on Crowdfunders are already made. These ones are especially doubly made in that the series is already complete, and you can get the trade of whatever storyline suits your wish, or you can do a bundle of sorts and add them all together.
Do we need to come up with a cool quip like, it's not a bundle, it's a fundle?
It's a bundle.
I guess it's now been come up with.
There you go. But yes, we are currently putting out trades for Cat and Mouse, Divinity, Friar Rush, Teen Beetle, Trumps, and Twilight Grim. We already have 3 of the trade covers done. 3 are currently under wraps. And I'm sure more deals will come soon. So it is $20 per trade, standard market rate. And if you want to start bundling them together, you can get 3 for $40. So you buy 2, you get 1 free.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. I mean, it's even better if you get up to 5 trades. It's just $50 there. 4 trades, $45. So, I mean, if you haven't had a chance to get into Silverline Comics yet, now is the time because this is some really good value, and these are all great storylines.
Fun stories, amazing art.
Yes. Okay. Well, that is our little bit of housekeeping there. So getting into
I guess it's just us again.
Yep. Oh no. I mean, we're still working for us. So I think I don't know. Might just be Dave's connection with the StreamYard server. But yeah, getting into tonight's topic, it is you don't need to be great to get started. So hope you lost Brent.
Brent didn't. We wasn't having it. He said, "I'm out."
Yep. It's network issues abound. There you go.
You're right.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
Oh, we thought your network dropped. Did you accidentally hit the leave button?
You still sound fine to me, Brent.
Thanks, man. You know, I actually work on this.
Meanwhile, the others are acting like they're in a Tron video.
Ah.
Oh,
Oh, that would be awesome.
right. Okay. Well,
Tim and I are
hopefully,
gonna make this-
hopefully
yeah.
David will be able to hear us intermittently and join in as things go. But yeah, we're talking about just getting started in comics and the idea of something that happens. I find frequently with young creators is the idea that they need to start with their magnum opus. That they're going to put out the best thing since sliced bread, and it's going to be their first work, and that's going to be what gets them noticed by everyone, or what gets them in the door. Which is a folly on multiple issues, just a lack of understanding and not wanting to go through the steps of progression. But also, on the conversely, it can stop you from putting anything out because you're going to just be hemming and hawing over your script or over your portfolio because that isn't quite exactly right yet. And I'm sure I can speak for all of us when I can say that our first work, professional or not, by our standards now, we'd probably think of it as a steaming pile of crap. Yeah. And so we'll get into the idea of...
That is very weird.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll open up with my favorite quote from Hourglass, which is, you get into the game because you have great taste. And so what happens is you keep on working on your skill until your skill catches up with your taste. However, at that point, you've already progressed and your taste is elevated again. Mm-hmm. So realistically, your skill is never going to catch up with your taste. It's always going to be this matter of chasing your own sense of perfection and understanding that for the consumer, both your taste and your skill are probably going to be exceeding what they expect. So, yeah. So open up to you guys. When it comes to you putting on your first work and how you feel about your early work versus now, what's that relationship like?
For me, I'm amazing. I bled amazing right out the gate. No, I'm just lying. You know, as an artist, when I got started, like even before I technically did my first work in comics, it was I have to have the proper pencil. I have to have this is the pencil they use. This is the paper that the pros use. I need those. I need that. Until I didn't have them anymore, and then I'm like, I'll just grab a pencil. I'll just grab a piece of paper. And mind you, I do have like specialty pencils now that I use on the regular. You know what I mean? I use my Pentel graphic gears. But I've gotten to that point where I wanted them and I got them because I like collecting.
I'm going to try and drop and come back in. Be right back.
I'm told okay, cool. Come back, please, Dan. Make sure you come back. But I've told people before, like whatever it takes to get the job done. You know what I mean? If it's a big fatty Sharpie, use a big fatty Sharpie. So
yeah.
That's my end. What's up with you guys?
I mean, hey, I've talked in the past about coming back out of the Army in 1968 and really, really wanting to get into the business. Lifelong dream ever since I was a little kid, and found comic books and started reading them or whatever. And one of the things that I ended up doing, the two major goals I had were, number one, learning the format and making myself aware of how the industry was working at that particular time in the late 60s, early 70s. First step in that direction was getting a subscription to the Comic Buyer's Guide, which is a phenomenal newspaper, and I really wish that thing was still around today, especially for young creators. I mean, Don and Maggie Thompson edited that. I think the folks at Fantagraph published it, and it was this huge, big newspaper. You know, it came in the mail once a week, and it was just filled with what was happening in the comic world. Whenever a new company came along, all right, I can remember the big headlines for the birth of first comic and those kind of things. And that's where you found out. That's how we stayed connected. There was no computer. There was no internet. So if you really wanted to know how the comic world, existed, what was happening, who was cool, what new titles were coming out, what, expect, et cetera, that's where you found it. And as like most newspapers, the back few pages were given over to personals, ads. And that's where young would-be creators started advertising their fanzines that you could buy, online through mail order. All right. So I would check those out. And if I'd see a fanzine that I thought was interesting, something I'd like to look at, I would order a copy and buy it. And I'm doing that. As I'm doing that, a couple of guys from Canada were publishing these little mini comics. All right. And lo and behold, I ordered some. They were like 25 cents a piece. I get this manila envelope with 5 or 6 of them that I'd ordered. And this is one of them. Okay.
Put it up there. Don't move. There you go. Thanks, Tim.
So that character, Freedom Fighter, was created by Art Cooper and Vincent Marchesano back in like 1970 or whatever. And they published a lot of these little mini comics. They did primarily all the artwork. Came up with all these different ideas for superheroes, science fiction stories, horror stories, and whatever. All right. Well, along about the time they were doing this, I had found a book on formatting and how to write a script. And I thought to myself, what the heck? All right. 2 young guys in Canada. I wonder. I basically wrote them a letter and said, you guys, interested in scripts? Because I'm a would-be writer and I'd like to get published. They got back to me and said, sure, Ron, go right ahead, whatever you got. And so I sent them a script for that character, Freedom Fighter. I sent them a 5-page script for a little Freedom Fighter adventure. They got back to me and said, hey, that's wicked cool. Yeah, Art's going to draw this. We're going to publish it. And if you got anything else, feel free to contribute anything. I mean, basically going to pay you in copies. So sure enough, I mean, I sat down and wrote another little short for another one of their heroes. That little mini comic with my Freedom Fighter story came out. They sent me like a half a dozen copies of it, all right? I mean, it's a ridiculous little comic book, right? Guys, I felt like I just conquered Everest. Because there it was, okay? In those tiny little pages was my story. And somebody had illustrated it. Panel for panel, there was my dialogue, there was my captions. And it was one of those moments in your life that you're never going to forget. It's such a rush. And the idea is, you know what? I can get addicted to this. I want more and more of this, all right? And so that being the case, I started looking at some of the other fanzines who were looking for writers for, essays, interviews, example. And again, this is just a case of look what's out there, see what opportunities are available for you. So 1970, 1971, all of a sudden I start finding this new artist who's working for Charlton Comics, and he's doing a couple of things for them, including a strip based on a TV series at that time called Primus, which was an adventure series about a scuba diving guy out in California. And they had gotten the rights to the TV show, and they started doing this series. And you can probably still find something of it online someplace. And the artist drawing it was new to me. All right, I mean, I'd grown up, from the early, way the early 60s. So I had a good grasp of who was out in the industry working for DC and Marvel, whatever. But I didn't recognize this guy at all. And so his name, I basically checked the credits out. His name was Joe Staten. So I go, wow, all right. So started following Primus, liked it enough. He ended up doing some horror comics for Charlton that I wrote him a fan letter. And so I write him this long fan letter, and he gets back to me, and basically he sends me this letter, which is like 2.5 type pages long, about who he was, how he got into art, how he got into drawing, what his own goals were now that he'd made it to Charlton and all that, and eventually hoping to get into Marvel or DC and make a career of all this. All right? Okay. So now I've got Joe's letter telling me his life story biography. He's just making a name for himself in the prose. And there's a guy in Massachusetts publishing a really classy looking fanzine called The Comic Crusader. And this thing was magazine size, and he had artwork from up and coming people like John Burns, Jim Steranko. He had some early comic strips, and he loved nothing better than articles or essays or interviews with comic professionals. Okay, so I'm looking at Joe's letter to me, and I went, man, I wonder. And I sat down and I broke it down and literally figured I could add a question, and one of his paragraphs would be the answer to the question. And then another, it would be like we sat in a room together and I interviewed him, all right? Once I had that done, I sent a copy back to him and said, Joe, would you mind if I sent this off to the Comic Crusader in case they'd like to have it one of their future issues? Well, Joe gets back to me. I get a manila envelope from Joe, and he's tickled pink with the idea because I'm going to help promote his new career. So what's in the manila, right, with the okay to do this? An actual original 8x10 science fiction sketch that Joe did, and said, here, send this along with the interview in case they want to illustrate it. So sure enough, I sent the package off to Marty Grimes, who was the editor-publisher of the Comic Crusader. Marty got back to me and said, hey, this is great. Yeah, this is going to be on our next issue. Thanks a lot, Ron. All right, and so there's this interview with up-and-coming Joe Staten by Ron Fortier, right? It didn't matter what the subject was, whether I was writing a script and sending it out to fanzines or doing interviews or doing essays, all right, of different comic projects or whatever. The idea was to establish myself as a writer, to get my name out there, to network, to make, friends. I mean, my connection with Joe to this day, we're good friends now. And at one point, Charlton decided they wanted to get into the superhero business, which they hadn't been in. And lo and behold, I get a phone call from Joe, who has always lived in upstate New York. And he said, hey, Ron, he says, Hillary, his wife, and I said, we're coming up to New England. We've never been to New Hampshire and Maine. And any chance we can stop by and say hi? Well, my wife and I said, never mind, stop and say hi. You can spend the night here if you'd like. We'd love to have you as guests. So sure enough, Joe Staten and his wife Hillary show up 2 days later at our home in New Hampshire. I meet him, physically for the first time. Great, great guy. And we show him the guest room, and we're sitting there talking, and he looks at me, he goes, I got something to show you. He said, I brought it up. He says, nobody else has seen this yet. I said, all right. He said, you heard that Charlton was doing superheroes. I said, I did. I said, wow, are you going to be on one? He says, yep. He says, me and Nick Cuddy, one of the head writers, a brilliant writer, all right, one of the most underrated writers in comic book history, who worked for years at Charlton. He said, Nick came up with this great idea for a character, and he says, I've got the original pages of the entire issue. He opens up his portfolio, guys, and what he lays out on my kitchen table are the pages for the first issue of E-Man. And I about fell on the floor, all right? Page after page after. It was all everything but color, of course, all right? But absolutely gorgeous, beautiful work. I'm standing there, go from page to page. I just can't believe how gorgeous this comic looks, how it reads, how funny it is, etc. And at one point, I turned around, I looked at Joe and I said, do you use models for your characters? Because I said, I know for a fact, what's his name? Gil Kane had used Paul Newman when he first drew Hal Jordan as Green Lantern. That was his model for Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. So I'm looking at the pages of E-Man, and I'm getting this, like, blonde-haired guy with, slim built and whatever. And I went, Roger Moore? And he goes, bingo, you got it. So E-Man was modeled after Roger Moore. Anyways, I'm telling tales out of school here, guys. But the idea is, if you're a young creator, if you want to get into this business, then start checking off some of the things that we're talking about here, okay? I.e., keep working. If you're an artist, keep drawing every day. Jose and David will tell you that constantly. You draw every single day. If you're a writer, same thing applies, all right? Write every single day. Find a way to get noticed. Find a way to show off what you can do. That just means going to conventions, all well and good. But I wonder sometimes, because we don't have that fanzine network anymore. It's been replaced by the internet, of course, which is way larger, way bigger, all those kind of things. Desktop publishing is available. Anybody can do any of this stuff. But I think one of the things that I don't see a heck of a lot of anymore, and for whatever reason, it was one of those little tools that came to my benefit many, many times as I was breaking into the business, and that's fan letters. And if you're a young creator right now, and there are people up there that you admire, whether it's an artist or a writer, all right, working at a particular company, write them a fan letter. Sit down and write them a real, honest to goodness, hey, I'm so-and-so, I like your work, I think it's fantastic, I think it's great, or whatever, and send it to them in care of their publisher. Trust me, all right, all of us like to know that our work is appreciated. Fan mail is really a boost, but at the same time, you never know what kind of connections you might ultimately make. My 2 cents, guys.
And we'd like those fan letters even more if they had tacos in them. Just saying.
Well, if they're freeze dried, maybe.
Yeah. All right, Brent. I mean, obviously, you kind of bounced around to a couple different creative fields, but what's your relationship like with your first work coming into being a creative versus where you are now?
Well, it's funny because my first actual published comic was Kalis #1, and I actually don't think it was half bad, largely because I had hired an artist, Louis Janowski, to actually draw it, and he's very sharp. But I would say probably what initiated, in terms of actually writing, there were a few things that helped along the way. One being that I had started writing skits for friends. I had taken a class on how to write screenplays. And if there's anything transferable to what we're talking about, it was that I decided that I wanted to write and I needed to write something. And when I talk to some writers who really are struggling, they want to be a writer more than they want to write, which is fine because, you got to start somewhere basically in terms of why you would do anything. But writing is as Jose was talking, my first thought was, writing is easier and simultaneously harder. For one, because Jose has to put all this effort into creating a piece of art that people can immediately look at and know if he knows what he's doing. And that is hard to get out there, but it also is, you're going to get your feedback right away. You're going to know if you have any kind of a future in this business. With writing, it's harder because, it's easier in that, you don't have to go to an art school. You don't have to. Basically, the nice thing about writing is if you know English, you're already like 3/4 of the way there. And that's if you know any written language, you're already 3/4 of the way there. What's hard is that you don't know if you're any good. And a lot of times people don't know how to critique good writing. And as a result, they struggle to know if they're any good. And I was very fortunate. I don't know if you guys remember this, but way back when Marvel first started, in the early days of Marvel's web presence, they had basically a weekly writing contest where they started with somebody wrote, probably one of their staff writers wrote basically a prose script, not even a comic script, but a prose story that was supposed to be part 1 of 4. And they say, okay, how would you do the second installment? And I just had people write in, and I was like, well, this is really cool. And so I remember very clearly it was a story about Shang-Chi fighting the Taskmaster. And I'm like, well, here's how I would write it. So I wrote the 4th installment. And I remember the day that I found out that they chose my story was very memorable because it was also a huge hurricane day. A hurricane had just hit Florida. And yet I was just like Ron, I felt like I have achieved. This is the best day of my life. Oh my gosh, I didn't get paid anything. I mean, the only thing was that I knew somewhere somebody liked something that I had written. And that was like, it's somehow mentally I put it in a gas can and just lived off it for months. The idea that I think what I'm doing has value to someone other than me, which you almost need that. I think Mark Twain said, if you want to be a writer, give yourself a year or something like that. And if you can't sell anything, you might want to try another line of work or something like that. I mean, he has a point. I would say you can do longer than a year, but first you need to just sit down and make yourself do this thing that you really want. But you also have to show it to some people, listen to what they say, and if they like it, bank it and remember it when you're hitting hard times. And if people are saying they don't like it, then find out why and either change it or cross them off your critique list and go find new people, basically is what I would say. But like you said, Tim, I've written across, I've done screenplays, I've done prose, short stories, and the cool thing about each one of them is they each have their own nuances and their own way of doing storytelling. But the cool thing about it is you can do it. You can learn how. And the way to learn how is just to do it, knowing that you're going to start out and it's not going to be good. But, I mean, it's no secret. Nobody starts out doing good at anything you do. If TV watching was an Olympic sport, we would automatically all be good at it, which is why it is not an Olympic sport. So if you want to be a writer, sit down and write something really crappy and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And you'll only go up from there. But if you really want it and you keep doing it, you will get better. It's inevitable. You'll just probably how I'd answer that question. I don't know if I did answer your question now that
I think you did. Yeah. I mean, we also have like a slightly related question in the chat. LJ Kaufman wants to know, I've been working on a comic idea, graphic novel for about a year, but having trouble connecting all the ideas together. And I think that's, fairly common if you are, well, it depends on how you're trying to write it. Because maybe you just are doing a mismatch in the writing styles that best work for you. But I mean, kind of like to the crux of this show, if this is your first script or idea that you're working on, you may just need to commit to it being bad and disjointed and refine it later. And just make sure to finish it and then come back and fix it. But usually that problem occurs if you are a pantser, someone who writes well, just kind of going scene to scene, and you're trying to plan it out because you're working in a way that you don't think. Or vice versa. It could be that you are pantsing it, but really you need to spend more time planning it out. So, however you're writing it, if you are taking time to plan out and do your pre-writing, maybe just jump in and start writing scenes. If you're already writing scenes, maybe step back and take a time to plan it. But either way, just commit to knowing that whatever you're working on is probably not going to match up to your taste because you probably have read a lot of comics, which is why you want to make a comic. So understanding that right now you're in the phase where your skill is still catching up to your taste. And that's, kind of what I talk about is like our first works, our first published works are still going to be at a higher quality than our first works we wrote when we have just thrown like something to the wind. Like, I mean, that's a cool premise. But the first things that I wrote while I was doing my study and writing, I would not grace an editor's desk with, and then eventually you level up and you get your first bits of work that you actually submit to publications, and those get published, and then years later you look back at those scripts and you're like, maybe I wouldn't touch those ones again, or if I were to touch those again, I need to refine them deeply. And so it is this long, ongoing process of you're only getting better from where you are now. Just keep on working at it.
Did you say pantsing?
Yes.
Riding by the seat of your pants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the traditional terms are pantsing and planning. However, they've now kind of gotten new terms, which I'm not sure why. I don't think we need to, but they're kind of cool terms. But now are you an architect or a gardener? Because an architect builds time to plan the story, whereas the gardener just lets it go and then trims it back. Which I think it does make a little more sense because if you are pantsing, you're going to spend a lot more time editing on the back end and maybe trimming things back in. So, but essentially, those are the two schools of thought when it comes to writing: is just going scene by scene and maybe stitching them together later, or are you actually going through and pre-planning your entire hero's journey and then writing from that point on? Like I'm a planner. I'm an architect. But in a weird way, in that my various stages of planning essentially are just iterating on drafts until I get there. So I do a bare bones draft, and then I do a meteor draft, and then I do my actual draft. So by the time it's there, I've already gone through several stages of edits myself before I actually have what would be considered a scene.
Yeah.
I mean, to get into my side of things before jumping over to the art stuff, very similarly, like I said, my early works that I did in school or like when I was a student or just kind of for fun, because I originally get into writing because it's fun. We like telling stories. Those are just for me at this point. Like they are not good, and that's okay. That's what they're there for. They're there for me to practice. They're there for me to cut my teeth.
Do you hold on to those? Like, do you like?
If I can, yeah.
Basically, do for you, just kind of put them aside.
I don't necessarily look back at them. Sometimes I do, but I still try to hold on to whatever scripts or manuscripts I can.
What about you, Ron? Do you have stories like that you just kind of wrote right out just to write out? You got them hidden in the drawer of Misfit Toys?
Pretty much. I think I've got quite a few unpublished scripts, comic scripts, series or whatever, that I could never find a publisher for at the time that I wrote them. And yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the rules we've talked about here often enough. I learned a long time ago, never ever to throw away scripts, ever. And I hang on to them because who knows if a couple of years down the line, I may see something in that script and understand why it didn't sell, maybe able to rewrite it later on when I have a fresh perspective on it. But you hang on to them, okay? You never ever let them go. There'll be multiple reasons why editors or publishers didn't want them. But yeah, I have. I mean, there have been several, and Roland will be the first one to tell you guys this. My concept and idea for Chivalry Incorporated was something I came up with over 30 years ago, and never wrote anything but maybe 15 pages of issue number 1, enough to maybe solicit and get would-be, artists on board with me to do character sketches, sample pages, those kind of things, like where you put a presentation package together. And I did. Over a couple of years, I got 2 or 3 really talented artists who got on board, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to stay the course. They did a few, sketches and pages or whatever, which I kept in a folder. I kept the art as well as the script idea and the presentation package. And somewhere down the line, I had mentioned all this to Roland. So in the back of my head, I knew that story. I just lived with it. All right, it wasn't flying. It wasn't going to sell. I put that away until about 2 years ago, when after wrapping up the last script on the science fiction thing that I'm doing, Beyond the Stars, with Andrea, Roland and I talking one day, chatting, and he said, "Hey, you want to do something else, Silverline?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I'd love to, dust off that Chivalry Incorporated project that I have." And I started to tell him about it as if, and I didn't recall we had discussed this almost all those decades ago. And the minute I said Chivalry Inc., Roland goes, "Oh yeah, the private eye with the telepathy." And I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, we'd love to publish that. That would be a great series. Go ahead." So suddenly it was a case of back to the files, pull out that slim file with that original presentation, look at it, dust it off, and now the opportunity to sit down and write that script out was a real joy for me. It was a pleasure because it had germinated in my mind all those years. And I knew how the story went. I knew where it turned. I knew what the middle was, what the arch was, and how it would wrap up. And I literally got the scripts done. Roland wanted 3 issues. I got those done within 6 months. And now I'm just sitting around waiting for the art teams to get the issues done. Issue 1's pretty much all wrapped up. 2's been penciled completely and is in the inking stages. So we're going to see it. But to answer your question again, Jose, yeah, I've got other ideas and presentations and nuggets in those files that if there's ever an opportunity to see the light of day with some publisher, then I'm, going to grab them and go for it. But, you don't throw away your scripts. You never, ever throw away your scripts, ever.
Brent, same question. You got a filing cabinet that's just bustling out with pages?
Filing cabinet?
Like, I'm OG, buddy.
Actually, the best part about doing things digitally is you don't have to throw anything away. It takes up 0 space. And every once in a while, I will dig out a short story or a script idea I've written. If anything, it's fun to read stuff that I've written, even if I'm the only one who's ever read it. But it also kind of reminds me where I've come from. that I was a decent writer, and I think I'm better. Which I always need to know that I'm not regressing. It's really hard to regress as a writer, but it's also hard to progress as a writer. So I'll take whatever I can get to keep myself encouraged. And plus, there are actually a couple of ideas. Like I've talked about one, Tommy Flormonti and I need to get together and make one happen, because he had an idea for a comic that I thought was so brilliant that I went home and I wrote the entire series out. And
don't say that out loud to Tommy.
Frankly, it's so cool of a hook. It's I'm afraid if I say it out loud, someone will hear this and steal
right.
it. So. But
edit out.
Yeah. And then I've got a couple other ideas too that they're sitting there. I will want to do another pass once if someone shows interest. But I mean that's a fun part about writing is it never really dies. You can always dust it off, and maybe you'll be re-inspired or something like that. But, yeah.
Definitely. Okay, on the art side of things, Jose, David, for you guys, looking back at your first works, either just getting into developing your artistic skill, or even a first work professionally, what's the relationship with that versus your work now?
I mean, I'm still doing stuff for the first person I ever did, like my published stuff that had my published work into it. So, I mean, it's not just Silverline. It's a friend of mine that I've known for quite some time. What was the question again?
So, like, how when you first started doing stuff creatively, how do you feel about your levels of skills and taste then versus where you are now, and what sort of was the steps you took starting out to leveling up and progressing your career?
Well, I think my tastes are still basically the same. I still like the genres that I like. I like Westerns. I like sci-fis. You know what I mean? And I like noir. I mean, those are pretty much everything but superhero, I think. But not anything against superhero. Just those happen to be my 3 favorite genres. But I think so. My tastes are pretty much the same, but I have realized, as I've gone to art school, that drawing every day now, I've learned to deconstruct, and I've said this before, learn to deconstruct other people's artwork, and not to say that in like a bad way, because it's not a bad, but in my head, like if I like someone's page and their layout versus sequentials, I'm going to mentally deconstruct it. Why did they do it like this? Like, what angle is this facing? Why does this pop out to me? You know what I mean? Just to try and rationalize it out. And that's adding more tools to my arsenal of what I can, I remember I saw this panel that somebody did this that might work for this panel. Let me pencil it in real quick. It's like, oh, okay, maybe not. You know what I mean? But at least I had that other idea, seeing it from a different perspective of my own work in a different perspective, to be able to grow. And I'm hoping that I'm still growing. I mean, there are days where I'm like, straight line, what's like pencil lines are avoiding me completely today. But then there are days where I think this is so good, I'm done. Like, I've just burnt out every last point of skill I have. So I'm time to retire, so, but you wake up every day, thank God for air in your lungs, and grab a pencil again and keep going. Dave just wakes up glorious. Like,
I think not.
Go.
I definitely think not. That's for sure. No, I just my when I started, it was I started inking and didn't know much about that. Just like comics and all that, and just gave it my try, and I was lucky to get a few things published, but didn't spend enough time in it. really perfect it. So then I switched over to color, which I was a complete restart, and I don't know what I'm doing at all, and just I just keep looking at it as every project I get, is there something that something new that I can do, and anything. I mean, I can turn around and say that this project that I worked with Ron on, I was experimenting on a lot of it, and and hopefully things worked out. I hadn't heard any complaints from Ron, but it was just like I said, there were a lot of things where I just kind of threw out there and said, maybe this will work and maybe it won't, and kind of just see what I can do. Because
shoot for the moon.
Yeah, you've always got your set of things that work. Your standards that you go, but sometimes you want to push something a little bit, and you want to go through and change it up. Maybe like you said, Jose, you're seeing a lot of different people with a lot of different different ways of doing things, and it's like, oh, well, can I incorporate some of that? Obviously you don't want to just copy the person, but maybe they have in source coloring, maybe they have a unique light source that they're using. Maybe they're something to that effect that just kind of stands out, and you're like, oh, well, I'll try that, and you try it, and either it works or it doesn't work. You have this nice little undo thing on the computer that comes very handy. But yeah, that's pretty much. I'm always open to learning and all that, and I don't think I've reached the end of my journey or anything like that. It's
right.
Something new, something next.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that young creators need to really understand, okay, is that if it's the passion you were born with, all right, you're going to do it, no matter what. All right, ultimately you will sit down and do it, but keep in mind, don't go after false idols. Okay, I mean, don't go after what is like what you think is the latest hot trend out there in the comic book field, or the the latest concept or whatever. All right, basically, if you have the soul of a storyteller, whether it's writing or drawing, tell the stories that you want to tell. All right, tell the stories that nobody else is telling. All right, I mean, honestly, you're your first customer, your first reader. All right, write the story that you want to read. And man, that sounds simple, but let me tell you, it isn't. Okay, It is. Again, block out what's all around you. Block out all the titles up on those comic shelves of the comic shops. All right, sit down, look at that monitor, and say, what's not there? All right, what do I want to tell? What do I want to read that nobody else is doing? And sit down and tell us that story. All right, I mean, my body of work, looking back on it, guys, is eclectic as all get out. All right, and it was a case of never wanting to be saddled in one particular field or one particular genre. I never gave that any thought. It was a case of every time I'd finish a project, it was like, okay, so what am I going to do next? And what do I want to do next? And okay, I haven't done a horror story. Can I write a horror story? What horror stories nobody else is writing? Okay, and from that came Daughter of Dracula, which combined my love of old Universal movies and aviation history. And I managed to blend those things together. And I'm still happy about that story and how I told it. Nobody else had done that, all right? Boston Bombers, an alternate world adventure. That thing is over, volume 1's over 25 years old. And I'll pick it up every now and then and flip through it, stop at a couple pages, read some dialogue or whatever, and still scratch my head going, where the heck did this thing come from? This thing is so out there. It's nuts. I mean, I was tapping into another dimension, all right? But I wrote it. It got done, all right? It's there. And so There's an adventure to creating. There's fun to creating. Those are the things I want young writers and artists to understand. All right, do it for the fun. Do it for the love. All right, never mind the fame and fortune. If you've got the talent and you can tell stories, people will listen. People will come, and the rest of it will take care of itself.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun thing that Stan Lee said when talking about a lot of his ideas. Like, I just made what was cool to me because, if I think it's cool, then somebody else has to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to is getting into comics. We're not here for the money. That's a different industry. We're here because comics are cool.
We're here for the donuts.
We're here for the Del Taco. But we're here because comics are cool and they're fun and we like them. And so, I mean, we're just going to keep on doing what we like and what is fun to us. And ultimately, other people think it's fun too because, we all have shared experiences, and our way to share them is through action panels and boom pow sound effects. And so, yeah,
absolutely.
And ask questions. Ask questions. Like to get started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just popped in my head.
Yep.
Ask questions. Like LJ asked questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said he liked it. He appreciated it. As an artist, dude, draw something and say, dude, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
My biggest critic is my wife, and people would think oh, it's so lovely, sweetheart, I love. No, she's like, what's wrong with her eyes? Why does her forehead look like it could repel sunlight? She will not sugarcoat for me, I promise you. So if you don't have a absolutely brutally honest wife, then find somebody who's going to be real with you. You know what I mean? Your mother is almost always going to say it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And she will almost always want to put it on the fridge. Okay? I'm not knocking mom because my mommy does the same thing. But find somebody who's willing to give you an honest critique.
Yeah. I mean, the real friends are the ones that'll tell you
what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
felt I needed to add that.
Go.
Writing Terminator, right? And I've got this sequence where one of the younger fighters, the John Connor's group, gets caught by the Terminators, and they're torturing him because they want to know where the Connors and his team are hanging out. So they're torturing him, and I'm writing this right. Hey, this is a PG comic. I mean, we still had the comic code back then. So I'm like, all right, well, they'll cut off one of his fingers. So I finish the script and I give it to my wife, my first reader. And like your own, Jose, right? My wife has it. She's, reading it. And she comes back in my office a half hour later, puts the script down in front of me, and goes, it's good, but it's not there. And I went, okay, what's missing? She goes, the finger thing. I said, what's the matter? Is it too gross, too bloody? She goes, no, not enough. And I went, excuse me? She goes, they're asking him for something and he's not telling them. So they cut out his tongue. Are you for real? She goes, yeah, cut out his tongue. All right, so take her advice. She's always, my steady north. I rewrite the script. Terminators cut out poor Timmy's tongue. Then Connors and the gang show up and save him. Okay, and from the rest of that point on, he's a mute character, which I didn't realize then becomes a much better character to write for me. It was a whole different potential. But here's the thing. We're at the San Diego Comic-Con, all right, months after that issue came out. And we're sitting at the table, at the Now table, and kids are coming up and getting their copies of Terminator done and whatever. And this 13-year-old boy comes over to me. Now, my wife's sitting behind me with the editor, and he goes, man, I love what you're doing with the Terminator. I said, well, thanks. I appreciate that. And I'm signing his copies, right? He goes, oh, when you cut out Timmy's tongue, that was awesome. I look over my shoulder and my wife is just sitting there smug as the cat bird. Okay, she's just like grinning me here. All right. So yeah, all right. Have a first reader. Have somebody who loves you enough to be honest and tell you, yeah, okay, maybe you need to do this or that. All right. I mean, I'm sorry, but that kind of support is invaluable. All right. Yeah, find somebody, a friend, a best buddy, whatever. Okay, but find a teacher. Who knows? Okay,
Yeah.
but find somebody to give you that kind of honest critique. All right, positive critique that'll keep you going. Okay, and make you refine the talent you already have.
And if you draw a page or a picture and they turn it upside down, don't be offended. There's a purpose for that.
Yeah.
Like every time I had a friend of mine who would draw something, he's like, Jose, what do you think? First thing I do is take it and turn it upside down. Because if you see it from a different angle and whatnot, you'll see some mistakes that may have been made that could be corrected.
Yeah.
Especially like faces and stuff.
Yeah.
You either do that or you turn it inside out against the light. But I always turn it upside down.
That's cool.
And people look at you weird when you do it. It's like, you got it the wrong way. And even my friend to this day is like, no, he doesn't.
Is that critical eye? There you go.
All right.
But everything's going to look lovely if you're looking at it like this. But, if you change the perspective,
Right.
you're going to see lots of, that's,
Interesting. Totally.
So,
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been that Silverline Show on Tuesday, talking about overcoming your imperfections and just getting started in comics. Make sure to head on over to the Silverline Comics crowdfunder, where you can order yourself a trade paperback of one of our series that has completed its run.
this is was it first wave of trades?
First wave of
We have
trades.
another wave in. I think it's almost done. Like we got
Yes.
several books that are right on that cusp.
Yeah. And if you're interested in collecting a slew of Silverline trades, jump in now because the value is great. And this also is testing the waters because with Dracula, that may be going trade first. That might be a new thing for us.
Interesting.
Well, the thing is that Rob Davis is such a workhorse that he's going to be done with everything before anyone else is.
That is fair.
Yeah.
Well, actually, fingers crossed. Beyond the Stars 6 comes out, and within hopefully a few months after that single floppy comes out, there will be a trade of Beyond the Stars.
Yes.
Yeah, I am chomping at. Believe me, guys.
Absolutely. So head over there, buy yourself a trade. We'll be back next week talking about our summertime reads. So what we've been reading to keep us busy throughout the summer, kind of anything that we find, you have your cozy reads for fall. What kind of relaxing beach dude vibes do you read during the summer? Lots of West Coast Avengers, I imagine. But so
Sure,
yes.
why not?
Yeah, we talk about our summertime reading. And make sure to check out Wednesday WM, Silver Sunday at their respective times, and check out the rest of the Madness Comics Network on the Roku, where you can find us, probably waking you up at 3 a.m. with our loud intro. If you just leave that on in the background. All right. We'll be back next week, but until that time,
Hey.
make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline.
Hi, I'm Chris Olm. I'm the former editor-in-chief of Malibu Comics. Make mine Silverline.